What is up, everybody? Welcome to the GrindTime FullTime Fantasy Football Podcast. I am your host, Adam Krautwurst, and with me is a new friend of mine, Kate Magdziuk, who's here to draft a SuperFlex Bowl 2 draft with us tonight. Super happy to have Kate. She just made her first pick, I think, pick 5 on the clock, and she went with Lamar Jackson in this SuperFlex Bowl.
Yeah, I did.
I love that. Kate, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing awesome. Every night that you draft a team, like an angel gains its wings, I think. So I'm just here to gain my wings, draft my team, and sitting at the 105, really hard to not draft Lamar Jackson. Standing there staring me right in the face. We know Mark Andrews is the dude. We're seeing all the hype with Zay Flowers. Really hard not to buy into this guy. And we know the rushing upsides there. What are we going to see as a passer this year with Zay Flowers, the little route running rookie?
I know. I think I saw you post something to Twitter about him earlier, maybe today or yesterday. He looks incredible. But listen,
He looks sharp.
So sharp. If angels are getting their wings when we're drafting, I mean, there's lots of angels with lots of wings because I never stop drafting. But so happy to have you here doing the SuperFlex Bowl. This is your first one, hopefully of many more. You're also going to be doing a mid stakes circa live draft with us, mid stakes draft. So that's going to be so much fun. So you're locked into the 5 pick today, and I'm going to introduce the room here while you're thinking about your next pick. Pick 1 is Team Maser. Brian, first SuperFlex Bowl of this season. He played in this event last year, and he's been with the Fantasy Football World Championship since 2019. So happy to have him here. Pick 2, Pass the Patron. It's his 4th SuperFlex Bowl of the season. I think I'm around I think I got like 10 or 11 in myself. We love Patrick because he helps fill drafts late, which I tend to do. I'm a sucker for, oh my gosh, I'm just laying in bed watching Dateline or something. I might as well throw on a draft. So happy to have him here with us. Team 3 is dialed in the running for our Cheerleader of the Decade award. Been a friend of the show since the beginning, and he will be in Vegas with us as well. Kate, are you going to Vegas this year?
I'm not, and I'm so bummed because I've seen some of the videos y'all are putting out in preparation for this draft, and I am foaming at the mouth, like as I'm watching, this little, scoop footage of the circa, the pool. It looks absolutely incredible, and y'all are gonna have such a freaking good time. I cannot, you're gonna have to do a repeat next year, and I'm gonna have to actually plan, and I'm gonna make it because it sounds like a must.
Oh yeah, for sure. Listen, angels are getting their wings tonight. We're foaming at the mouth. I mean, it's fantasy football.
This is a lot. It's fantasy football season. We are in full training camp form. This is what everything is been about, right? Like we've been so hyped up. We've been imagining storylines just totally off the top of our heads our imaginations have been going full force for far too long, and we've let them run amok. Now it's time to reel it in and
I know.
And get back to reality. And reality is everybody's in the best shape of their lives, and it's training camp, baby.
It's short season, right? They're out there in their short shorts. It's quad season. It's AJ Dillon quad season. No, for sure. I was literally going to tweet that out there. Like, man, this is the best time because every little out route looks incredible. Every little stop and go looks sensational. But back to the people that are in the draft tonight. Team 4, the Amazonians, Lawrence, won the first 2022 mock draft WC last season, not mock draft world championship. So he will be with us in Vegas as well. He got airfare paid for, hotel paid for, the work. So that is fantastic. Team 5 is the future champ of this event. Kate, yourself, picking out of the 5 hole. Pick 6, always smooth 10. Brian, another full-time fantasy guy from the beginning. So we're happy to have him. And after I get through all these guys, we'll break down everybody's first round. FF Oracle Matt, 7th SuperFlex Bowl draft, coming live at you tonight. He's also playing in the and World Championship contest live in Vegas. So I'm hoping I'll get a chance to meet Matt the Oracle for sure. Pick 9, Blue Dog, Joseph. Yeah, he'll be having a good time with us tonight too. This keeps his mind sharp. He says fantasy football keeps his mind sharp. It kind of drains me. I'll be honest, but I don't have much left after I'm thinking about fantasy football. Team 10 is Team Matt, his first ever full-time fantasy contest. Team 11 is Arch Enemy Terry. It says Terry's 10th SuperFlex Bowl. The last one he drafted while on an airplane in Romania. I mean, come on.
I've never dedication.
done dedication. Probably at 4 a.m. or something too.
There's no time when you're in the air. Like there's no such concept as time when you're in the air in Romania, right? Like
that's right.
Not even a thing.
They're in Vegas. The air in Romania and in Vegas. There's no concept of time.
For like on the real though, for the Vegas front, like
right.
Yeah.
listen, if you're still thinking about it, they're there all month, Kate. You don't got to go opening weekend. The Circa is going to be open all month for these drafts. People can have any chance to get out there.
Is Circa ready for it though? Is Circa ready for all this heat, man?
I'm seeing all that the poolside drafting. Come on. That's
the dream.
That is the dream. That is the dream. And then not the dream, the godfather of reality, pick 12. From Canada, has been with us since 2021, maxed out the SuperFlex Bowl last year. So he's a veteran, Kate, pick 12, but you're sitting in the middle. Lamar Jackson, you followed up with Dak Prescott. So again, SuperFlex, you can start a quarterback at the flex position, which is why they're going so high. Kate, walk us through your first, you already walked through Lamar. Talk about your second pick.
I'm loving Dak Prescott here at the 208. Now, like, Dak Prescott, I already feel like is just like kind of generally an underrated quarterback, right? Like he takes a lot of heat, but has some, ability to run, gets, 20 plus rushing yards a game, not too shabby there, but, can sneak in some of those rushing touchdowns. But Dak Prescott, I really, really, really like for him this offseason, the addition of Brandon Cooks. Like what this offense needed so badly was speed. Now, I'm not bullish on Brandon Cooks for fantasy necessarily, but for Dak Prescott, I think Brandon Cooks could really open things up in this entire offense here. You have Tony Pollard, so explosive. Like Jake Ferguson, kind of a late round sleeper tight end here for Dak Prescott, might pair them up like maybe in the final round, who knows? But just an interesting situation for Dak Prescott, but I really think that Brandon Cooks could be such a difference maker just with the speed that he offers that Dak's been sorely missing for some time.
Yeah, I mean that's the point, right? Is Brandon Cooks is there? You got that quick speedster, and like you lose Zeke. Zeke was a fine pass catching back, but he wasn't as explosive as Pollard is. So and you're losing Dalton Schultz, who's just 5-yard out routes all day. Like you're going to get speed upgrades here all over the place. He's not going to run as much as he used to, which you pointed out, but I mean those weapons. There's only maybe a handful of teams with better weapons than he has there in the NFC East. So I know you're on the clock here coming up. So I'll break down the first round. Pick number 1 in our SuperFlex Bowl: Patrick Mahomes to Loud Noises, Justin Jefferson to pass the Patro at number 2, Josh Allen number 3, Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, Herbert, Joe Burrow. Listen, we'll talk about him in a minute. To Lean and Green, Cooper Kupp, Jamar Chase, Justin Fields, Christian McCaffrey, and Trevor Lawrence round out the first round of this SuperFlex draft. 3 receivers and a running back. Not bad. You could sometimes Watson sinks into the first round here. I've seen Prescott get close to the first round, but 3 receivers and a running back to go with all those quarterbacks here. And we got a little bit of a scare today from a couple of players. One of them being Joe Burrow, just a calf injury. Thank God. I know you just made your pick here, Kate. So what's your initial Joe Burrow take? All right, can you catch your breath now after what you saw?
Still having palpitations, I'll say that. But I mean, all things considered, like that's all you could have hoped for was that it was a calf injury and not like an Achilles, came in a non-contact situation, just didn't look good. I think gave everybody a stop in their tracks. But I think everybody knows that like without Joe Burrow here, this offense is going to look a lot different.
Yeah.
And
Oh yeah.
I mean, Joe Burrow, like, you're not counting on him for mobility. You're scoring fantasy points thanks to his arm, which is a good thing. If he's limited with a lower body injury, like at least he's that kind of guy that like he's not a Lamar Jackson, right? He's not a
Yeah.
Justin Fields where he's scoring the bulk of his fantasy points on the back of 40 plus yard runs. Or even Daniel Jones, who just went at the 3.8, who also scores fantasy points thanks to like 40-yard runs. But like, I think we're gonna have to wait and see like just how this continues to play out. Like, he's a proven veteran. You don't need to worry about him missing time. Like, not much has changed from the offseason, luckily. So it's not
Right.
like he's coming into a new situation like Jimmy Garoppolo. He's had some questions with the foot injury. If he came into, Raiders training camp and missed out on some of that time due to injury, based on, like that idea that he's missing out on opportunities to build rapport, that would be one thing. Like Joe Burrow, I do think he's a guy that can handle missing a little bit of time. So I'm not too spooked yet, but I do think we need to keep a close eye on how this is going to evolve and just how serious it is. I'm sure they'll probably, like, I haven't seen any follow-up just yet. I'm guessing they'll probably do like an MRI or something just to see like just how severe this injury is, how long they need to hold him out. But all things considered, like, fingers crossed.
Right. What's interesting too is he was wearing like a calf sleeve right before the injury, and they asked him like, "Hey, how come he was just general soreness?" And then that calf pops when he's running. Like, Joe Burrow doesn't wear a calf sleeve, and now his calf pops. Like, yeah, it's interesting. Who knows? But no, you're right. We're all happy to see it wasn't an Achilles, it wasn't an ACL. You're right. He doesn't need to be in the off. He doesn't need to play in the preseason, but you still don't love to see him get injured there. And he is a pocket passer, like you said. So probably thank God for that for fantasy and that offense that he'll probably be okay. But back to your draft. So after Lamar Jackson and Dak Prescott, you follow up with Davante Adams as the wide receiver 11 off the board behind Jalen Waddle.
What are we doing, guys?
Wilson. Like, what are we doing, guys?
What are we doing? Davante, you just gonna hand me Davante Adams? Like, I thought I was coming here to be competitive.
Oh, let's go.
Come on.
With Davante Adams in
like
the third round.
I mean, it's like giving or taking candy from a baby, giving candy. Which one?
You just took
taking.
Davante
Adams. I took candy from you, babies.
He's
Davante Adams. He's nothing but candy. And I mean, like, Darren Waller, I don't know if you guys saw the headlines. He's out of town. He's in New York right now, or New Jersey, or whatever.
Jersey. It's Jersey.
Yeah, he's in New Jersey right now. And guess what? That leaves literally, I don't know, 190 to 300 targets left for my guy, Davante Adams. Like, dude's not going to miss a beat. We're hearing really good things about Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, he seems to have won over the locker room there for the Raiders. Go figure. I'm like kind of all in on Davante Adams, and I'm kind of confused as to why he's falling in pretty much every draft I'm participating in, because he's still Davante Adams. This isn't like a dynasty league where you have to worry about him aging out. It's Davante Adams.
Right. No, I get it. And normally he goes, at least ahead of Jalen Waddle. That was the kind of a surprising one. The ADP digs St. Brown. He usually goes in the St. Brown, AJ Brown, Garrett Wilson range. So Waddle was an interesting one to see him. And that kind of brings to the point you're about to draft pick here. So when I do SuperFlex drafts, it's so much like different than a standard kind of redraft serpentine style draft. And so you really have to rely, at least I do have to rely on my tiers in each position group, because like you see Davante Adams in the third round, it's like hard to like quantify that when you're drafting. You have to go to like your tiers, say, okay, like, what receiver normally is there, what running back, like where am I in my different rankings? That's how I look at it, because again, it's so much different than seeing like, oh my gosh, Davante Adams in the third round, but who else is available? What players are going around him? And how do your tiers work? So how do you do that when you're doing a SuperFlex draft, Kate?
I mean, you've always got to prioritize the quarterback position just
Yes.
based on the idea that these guys, you have the ability to start two, and that is so key because I mean, having the ability to start even like a low end quarterback, you might be talking about an absolute floor of 15 points per game, whereas even one of your running backs might be scoring like 15, 16 points a game, but how much higher is their ceiling? Like that's what you're thinking about when you're starting out with these super flex drafts. But my approach, I very much endorse tier based drafting. So like, back when I was making this Devontae Adams pick, looking at my options, like obviously running backs are so important in fantasy and you want to have a top end running back, right? But like looking at the wide receivers, I saw Devontae Adams and then there was a clear tier break. Like then, following Devontae Adams, you have T. Higgins, Amari Cooper, like some guys that I just don't think have as high a ceiling. Like Devontae Adams, his ceiling's the top 5 performance, especially based on not just the player, but the situation, considering that Darren Waller is out of town. Josh Jacobs not present,
Right.
not
Right.
mentally present, not physically present. Like there's some issues going on there. So like you're looking at a guy with very high upside. And then I look back at my running backs, right? And I see like, okay, well, all the guys right there are kind of similarly tiered for me. Like there's not a big differentiator. So yeah, I'm gonna go even if these guys are projected kind of closely in terms of my own rankings. I'm gonna take the guy that I think is like a tier higher than all the other wide receivers, as opposed to all the running backs that I kind of have graded out pretty similarly coming up in the season, because that's where you're looking for every single edge you can get.
Absolutely, and those are all those are all great points. If doesn't it feel so good to take the last player in your tier too? Like,
Yes.
please just let that guy. Yes, perfect. Like I hate taking the first guy in my. I don't hate taking it, but it feels better to take the last guy. I love that too.
You
So
feel
you're
like you got away with something.
yeah, that's right. That's right. That's absolutely right. And you're obviously a big fan of that man, Candy Devontae Candy Adams. We're going to start for sure. But yeah, so to kind of wrap out the second round here, the turn goes Trevor Lawrence, Deshaun Watson, and then Eckler, Kelsey, Tyreek Hill, CD Lamb, Tua, the next quarterback off the board. Quarterback 10 goes in the middle of the second round, followed by Stephon Diggs, Dak Prescott, Amon-Ra, St. Brown, A.J. Brown, Kirk Cousins, Garrett Wilson. The thing that I love about Superflex 2, Kate, is just seeing players like Stephon Diggs and Tua next to each other. Like nowhere else in the world would you see like a top 6 or 7 fantasy receiver, top, middle of the first round pick with Tua there. And so that's what makes it fun too. But so after your draft started, Lamar, Prescott, Adams, all the way back around to Najee Harris, and you are a Steelers girl. Yes.
I am.
Am I doing that right? Okay. Talk to me
Yeah,
about
like
Najee.
yeah, I just got my candy pick. Talk about candy.
Lots of
Uh,
candy tonight.
I don't know. Najee Harris is a candy pick. So like I mean, Najee Harris didn't have the best 2022, right? Like not efficient, not what you wanted. He was my overall RB1 in 2022. May he rest in peace. But like looking at, I mean, like I have to imagine 2022 was the floor, right?
Correct.
Like
Yeah. Right.
totally inefficient, like 4 yards per touch, not just like overall. Like usually you'll see, running backs who see 50 plus targets, they're gonna have that yards per touch inflated a little bit by the receiving work. Not Najee Harris last
Right.
year. Like has yet to exceed 4 yards per attempt so far in his rushing career. Like it's just been a mess. But if I'm looking at the floor and it's 1,200 yards and 10 touchdowns, yeah, I'm gonna take that floor easily. The Steelers have done a lot of work on their offensive line.
Yes.
Tackled Broderick Jones in the first round. He got some second team reps, but I expect him to take a leap throughout training camp. Get those, start with the first team. I think that in general, this team is moving in the right direction. Kenny Pickett's headed into his second year, and I'm not the biggest Kenny Pickett fan. I'm not the biggest Kenny Pickett believer, but Like, I think that what we've seen time and time again from Mike Tomlin, from this offense, is that they're going to lean on their main running back.
Yeah.
And yes, Jalen Warren has lots of hype, but I mean, if I can get a running back that can easily see 300 touches this year in the 3rd round, I'm going to take that all day.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's it, right? That's what the running back position is all about. It's about those touches, about those opportunities. And it's funny you mentioned Jalen Warren. I was thinking the other day, like now that Tony Pollard has a job, but now that Alexander Madison has a job, who is that the next? Because we've been waiting on those guys for 3 years, right? They were the elite handcuffs and injury away from a top 5 performance every single week. And Jalen Warren, I mean, we're not there yet and whatever, but we were talking about this backfield. Like he could be the guy that you take in that Pollard range from last year, or the Alexander Madison range, where, hey, listen, he's probably just a handcuff, but if he gets that opportunity, he could do really, really well. But like you said, Tomlin, the Steelers, they lean on that one running back, and that's going to be Najee. So I really like that pick for sure. So you come back around after Najee and you grab Joe Mixon to go double tap running back. I'm going to guess, is this the same argument that you're making for Najee Harris?
Yeah, I've never been a fan of Joe Mixon ever. Like, I don't draft Joe Mixon pretty much anywhere, or ever have I. Of course, I'm a Steelers fan. I got to be loyal here, but like Joe Mixon, he has been grossly inefficient, but his price tag is finally starting to match up with that. In the 5th round, you had the departure of Samaje Perine, or addition of Orlando Brown. Like the offense, I think, is going to be, conducive to a lot of touches for Joe Mixon, and maybe more efficient ones than we've seen in the past, just given, especially like it's really hard to overlook Orlando Brown and what he might be able to do for just like sometimes one player can change the entire chemistry of an offensive line. And I think that's what the Bengals are going to be hoping for here with this situation in 2023.
Yeah, the Bengals are all, they're in a win now mode. They've got their quarterback, they've got their stud receivers. Like that's why they brought Mixon back. That's why Mixon's like, it's just they're ready to win now. They're ready to win a Super Bowl now. So Mixon's going to be the guy. I can't see them handing the reins over to some rookie running back that, not some premier elite guy. So Mixon's going to get all the work he can handle for sure. And so, yeah, I'm right there with you too. I've been taking them more, like you said. You don't really have a lot of them. I've been unfortunately taking a little bit more than I really want to, but there's certain points in the draft, mid 4th round of a normal non-SuperFlex draft, where he kind of makes sense. But you're on the clock coming up here, so while you're doing that, let me remind people about the SuperFlex Bowl and what it's all about. So you can start quarterback in the flex position. It's a weekly 9-player lineup: 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 receivers, 1 tight end, no kicker or defense, thank you, and 2 flex players. One of them can be a quarterback. This is best ball, no activations, no add or drops, 20-man roster. You can max out this tournament for 50 leagues at $50 a piece. So you guys can do that math. This is league number 29, and we're not even in August yet. So we're going to fill this thing quick. Number 30 is tonight at 10:30. So maybe I'll jump into that. We'll see how that goes. If we're even out of here by 10:30, we'll see. So prizes each week, top 2 each league in advance. Sorry, not each week, each league win at least $100 in advance. Since it's at the playoffs, the grand prize is $5,000. Man, what could we do with $5,000? Kate, what could we do in Vegas with $5,000? Although that
we
might
could
not
win 5 more thousand.
That's right. That might not go for. We could play something for 1 second, and who knows? But yeah, no, that's what this tournament is all about, and we are super happy to have you in it. And hey, these guys and gals are all out here to try to beat Kate. We'll see how they do. So you went tight end in round 5: Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott, Devontae Adams, Najee Harris, Joe Mixon, George Kittle as the tight end 4. You didn't wait. You went and got your guy. Talk to me about George Kittle.
I mean, it all comes down to it. You mentioned just now, this is a best ball league, right? So like, I don't have to worry about setting a lineup. George Kittle is a very volatile tight end who has like probably the highest ceiling of any tight end in the NFL, but his ability as a blocker, like all of these things, it can kind of, create some peaks and valleys for George Kittle, and a situation where I don't have to worry about when to start him is the ideal situation for George Kittle, because I mean, he can win you weeks. Like how many games did he have last year with 2 or more touchdowns? I think it was 4.
And
Was it
probably
4?
all right in a row. Usually they're all like
He
4.
goes on streaks.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
I'll take George Kittle. Like, usually I won't be the one looking to invest in George Kittle, like you know, a redraft league,
Yeah.
you know, dynasty. I'm, you know, a little bit more willing to invest, just because like it's really hard to find just a startable tight
Great.
end in
Yep.
dynasty. But um like best ball is the perfect situation to draft George Kittle, because you don't have to worry about that. I'll, you know, take a couple of later round tight ends that I think can maybe fill some of those gaps where George Kittle misses, and
Yep.
boom, my tight end position is complete.
Yeah, I think he's probably going to get a little bit of like touchdown regression, like you were saying. Like his touchdowns really buoyed his fantasy production last year. But Kittle's a guy again that you know.
Yards after the catch, like
Well, I know he's a stud. He's a stud. The problem is he's too good of a blocker. That's his problem. They want to keep him in the block, which is crazy because they have like the best left tackle to like ever live over there, Trent Williams. Like so, it's super like interesting. But yeah, like Kittle's a stud. And if he gets hot at the right time, like he did last year, like you said, you just
he can carry you.
fill it. Yeah, you fill in the gaps, a couple of the other tight ends, and go ahead and go ahead and use Kittle when he's an absolute stud. So it'll be interesting to see who you take here. You've got 2 quarterbacks, you've got 2 running backs, you got your elite tight end, and you go back to the well with another running back, Dameon Pierce for the Texans as RB20. Is that good to you? Is that right about where you have him?
I honestly, like, so I just did an article for PFF last week.
Yep.
Best ADP values with top 5 upside, and guess who was in that article? It was Dameon Pierce, baby.
Woo!
Like Dameon Pierce, I like, this is me. I'm relatively more bullish on the
Bullish
Texans
here.
offense. They didn't have a great day today. You know, like there's been some ups and downs, and I think they're going to continue to have some ups and downs. This is a young team. This is a young offense. This is a new head coach. This is a rookie quarterback and Davis Mills. Like, this is going to be a team that has some growing pains. But you know who didn't have growing pains ever? It was Dameon Pierce. Like, literally, I think led all of PFF and elusive rating for, you know, a running back, which basically like take out the offensive line. Like, how good are they at creating yardage on their own? Dameon Pierce led that pack, like all of the NFL. He's so tough. He's so elusive. He's so difficult to bring down. And this year, they actually have a few more weapons to deter a little bit of attention. Like, I'm not saying CJ Stroud's going to light the world on fire. I'm not saying Tank Dell, you know, 5'8", 165 is going to light the world on fire. But I definitely think that there are more weapons. John Mechie, my guy Dalton Schultz, who I absolutely love. Like, all of these weapons coming together, all of these are good things for Dameon Pierce, who was already really successful when he was really the only offensive weapon in his rookie season. Needs to develop a little bit as a receiver, as a blocker. But again, you know, like coming out of your rookie season, you know, I think those are all really reasonable things for a running back to have to work on. So I'm all in on Dameon Pierce. And I think the world is just going to kind of hold his 80 or his actual draft position against him. Like, he's a later round running back coming out of Florida. But the thing is, he didn't get a ton of work. And when he was in college, when he was at Florida, he was really good.
Yeah.
Anytime he touched the ball, he was really
No
good. He
line
just didn't
stuff.
touch it a lot. Like,
Yeah.
it kind of like Roshan Johnson, like a very similar situation where he didn't see a ton of work. Obviously, Johnson had like his own reasons, cough Bijan Robinson, for why he didn't see work. But like, these are players that, you know, coming out of the draft, like I think the biggest knock on them was a lack of, you know,
Yeah.
a bulk of carries. But like me, I'm thinking, okay, fresh legs, let's go.
Yeah, yeah. Dameon Pierce's offensive line stunk at Florida, and that was like clear as day. And he came out, he was awesome. I am concerned a little bit about the pass catching role with Singletary there and the overall offense, but Pierce is really, really good. Interesting too, before we get back to your next pick, Breece Hall falls to RB22 with the news that Dalvin Cook is in town. Did you consider him at all with your pick there?
No.
No. Were you neutral before, or were you already off of Breece Hall because of the knee?
So, like, generally speaking, not like totally off of Breece Hall, but when I'm comparing like the situation or, specifically like the average draft position for Breece Hall versus Javonte Williams, like Javonte Williams going much later in fantasy drafts than Breece Hall, had a more complicated injury, but like I think there's a risk with both of these guys. So like I'll just take the risky asset that's going later, which is Javonte Williams. Like already not feeling super great about Breece Hall, but like Dalvin Cook in the mix, man, it's going to make, thank God this is a best ball league because you're not going to know who to start on any given week. And I have a feeling that this is going to be a situation where it's like the Dalvin Cook show to open up the
Yes.
season and they're going to take things easy for
Yeah.
Breece Hall. And I don't want my running back to take it easy
No.
in the 7th round, right? No. Like I still want you to be getting some nice touches here and
No, I get it. And plus, like if they were going to take it easy with him and let Michael Carter play for 4 weeks while he rests, fine. Because when Breece Hall gets back, he's the stud. But if Dalvin Cook's there, Dalvin Cook's not going anywhere when Breece Hall gets back. If they put him on the pup, whatever. We're just projecting here. But I know you're on the clock coming up here. I want to talk about Team 2 real quick. We'll go through a lot of these teams. Quite the stack that Stats Guru points out here in the chat. Jefferson, Cousins, Hawkinson, Madison, Addison. So we got like 6 of the first 7 picks here are Vikings.
A lot of Addisons.
It's a lot. And my daughter's name is Addison. Lots of Addisons.
Hey.
All over the Hawkinson, Madison, Addison, Jefferson. So, I mean, I love a good stack. Best ball, SuperFlex best ball. I love it. But is that overkill with six players from one team in the first 7 rounds?
Yes.
Agreed.
Yes. Yeah, I'd be sweating because, like, man, if things go south for that team, you're done.
Yeah, and even if they go north for that team, they can't all eat. And so, especially at those early. Now, listen, you want to do something like take Daniel Jones and like 3 of the receivers with like your last 3 picks. If they don't all eat, they're your last 3 picks. But to do it here this early, I think it's going to be trouble. It's
bold.
It's bold. It's a bold stand. Listen, he's trying to show off right now. He's trying to beat Kate and show off all at the same time. But yeah, so we'll go back to team 1 here. We'll start rolling through some of these rosters and we'll take a look, Kate, at some of these builds and some of these players. So Laudoja starts with Patrick Mahomes, and then they wait until round 7 to go Tannehill. That's a strategy that can work. You take that elite one who you think is number 1, and then wait and make sure you get another starter, but not another top end one.
I love Tannehill as a value this year, by the way.
Yeah, now for sure, right? Go ahead.
Adding in DeAndre Hopkins, like such a big move. Like last year, just kind of write it off, right? Like Ryan Tannehill wasn't healthy, didn't play the whole season. Each of the 2 seasons prior finishes a top 12 quarterback, like has a little bit of prowess as a rusher, like kind of like Dak Prescott. Like that's not the name of his game, but DeAndre Hopkins allows, I think, a lot of room for him to return to some of that efficiency we saw prior to AJ Brown's departure. Like why not? Right? Like if he's your QB2 all day.
No, I completely agree. Veteran guy who's got weapons, although he'll know where to go with the ball. And again, another team that's showing they're in it to win it now, right? I mean, they're not like as good as the Bengals are, but they're just showing with the way that they're acting. They're in it to win. The problem is their offensive line stinks. Hopefully they can keep Tannehill upright. So Mahomes and then Wilson, Waddle, Higgins are the receivers. Ramondre Stevenson, Sanders, Montgomery are the running backs. So a nice little even there, 3-3. And then Darren Waller gets maybe the last tight end in that kind of tier before the big drop off. So yeah, nice build. I think two quarterbacks, 1 elite one, hopefully an elite tight end, 3 great receivers, Wilson, Waddle, Higgins. So that's why SuperFlex fun, man. You can really just load up on certain positions and stuff. So, and we already talked about team 2, but we'll go back to your pick. Jahan Dotson is your wide receiver 2. Are you worried about your receiving core? What do you think are coming up here? You think you're on the clock now? You want to talk us through it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, interesting position. I went RB heavy. I got my quarterbacks. I have my stud wide receiver. I think Jahan Dotson is a really nice high upside wide receiver too. So like I'm going to keep chasing some upside here with this
No,
next
you have
pick.
to.
And I have to, right? So I'm going to go with the stack here. I'm going to go with Zay Flowers, who feels a little early for Zay Flowers, 9:05. But you know, we said at the top of the show, right? Like the potential is there for Zay Flowers to have the wide receiver 1 role in this offense, and he looks good, man. And like I hate to make like a lazy comp between him and Marquise Brown, but like it's kind of an obvious one. And we saw Marquise Brown be really successful, and the additions of OBJ, if we can get Rashad Bateman healthy, like all of these things are good for this offense. So give me the stack between Lamar Jackson and the wide receiver that I'm going to project to lead this receiving core.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really good pick. And the biggest issue with Marquise Brown when he was with the Ravens was he was dropping balls all over the place. Like his drop rate was so high. But no, I think listen, chase that stack, and this is the season where people see highlights and stuff. And so I don't think it's ahead of schedule at all for him. He normally goes as wide receiver 55, but he's going to be moving up the board. Wide receiver 40. And again, once you get to the difference between wide receiver 40 and wide receiver 55 is nowhere near the difference between like wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 15. So like once you get to that range, you don't know if Zay Flowers is going to make it back to you in this range. You've got the quarterback. Go ahead and take him. I'm going to start mixing Flowers, and I'm a big Bateman guy, but the early season pup and all that stuff, we don't know a lot of, so we don't know almost anything when it comes to this stuff. These are all educated guesses. Flowers could be the guy. So I think that's a great pick. 2 young upside receivers to go with Devontae Candyman Adams.
Yeah.
It's wide receiver 11 there. But we'll get back to team 3 here. Josh Allen out of the 103 dialed in with Josh Allen, then goes AJ Brown, Geno Smith, who I love this year, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jerry Jeudy, J.K. Dobbins, Lockett, Gabe Davis, Pickens. I got to say, I really like this team. I like a lot of the actual players, not just the build. I like Gibbs. I like Dobbins. Geno Smith. Talk to me about the Seattle offense, Geno Smith. Are you on board with that?
I'm 100%. Like I feel very I usually feel like I'm like a negative Nancy in terms of my fantasy analysis, but this year I'm feeling really positive. And Geno Smith is no exception to that. Like showed incredible efficiency as a passer that I don't think anybody in the world could have predicted. And if you did, you're lying.
Right.
Like it had, rushing chops to boot, which like it just exponentially raised that floor for him for fantasy. And then Seattle runs it back, and they follow that up with Jackson Smith and Jigba, with Zach Charbonnet, who I think can be a nice asset in the receiving game. Like they are setting Geno Smith up to really be the quarterback that they're going to be leaning on over the next couple of years. And if he can't do it again with an even further upgraded receiving core, then he can't do it. So like I'm all in. It's especially the rushing upside though that Geno Smith has that kind of puts him in a higher tier than maybe you would have thought otherwise.
Yeah, I think he finished, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think he was like a top 7 quarterback last year. They add Jackson Smith and Jigba, and he's going quarterback 15, 13, 6. Like I get a lot of the quarterbacks had like down years last year that might bounce back, but I'm right on board with you. Geno Smith, I have so much Geno Smith. I love it. And credit to him. Excuse me, his mechanics looked different last year too. It's not that he just, got lucky or whatever. Like he looked like his mechanics changed. He looked great. Like I'm all in on Geno Smith. They're all in on Geno Smith. They've shown it, right? Drafting offensive players. I'm super excited for him in Seattle, which is interesting because normally we're smashing Pete Carroll for all of his decisions. But so I like a lot of the picks here for dialed in. Amazonians will do team for you. Jalen Hurts to kick it off for them. Amon-Ra St. Brown, interesting over A.J. Brown in the second round to not get the stack. Nick Chubb, Deebo Samuel, Mike Williams, Derek Carr, Chris Godwin, and then 3 straight running backs, Isaiah Pacheco, Antonio Gibson, Brian Robinson. Interesting handcuff stack there, Washington Commanders. What do you think of the build? Again, another team that went elite quarterback early, waited to make sure that they got another starting quarterback in the mid rounds, waited on running, got the one running back. I don't like a lot of the micro kind of picks here. I would have gone AJ Brown for the stack over Amon-Ra. I know we talked a little bit about that with Zay Flowers, but are you generally like chasing stacks or, I mean, that would have been right at ADP for them.
I like the stacks if I can get them, especially when it is like, I mean, any stack is great, but especially when it's like the clear number one, like,
Sure.
that is like taking candy from a baby. Keep the metaphor going. But I understand the upside with Amon-Ra St. Brown. The volume is there. Jameson Williams suspended and also injured now. Amon-Ra St. Brown, he's like pounding the table for targets deeper down the field, which like you'd love to see. He had just 6.5% of his targets as deep targets last year, which is abysmally low, like so bad. You want to see him get targets deeper down the field. And if he does, like, and especially if this offense can take some leaps while they're on the road, and Jared Goff can take leaps while he's on the road, like this was already one of the league's most productive offenses in the league. So I get it, but I prefer the stack when ADP is back to back like that. And I think the upside is quite similar.
Yeah, no, I completely agree on that take. Sam Howell, QB 30, your quarterback 3, SuperFlex, 3 quarterbacks is very viable. Most teams will do it. Most teams have been doing it. Talk to me about Sam Howell. Are you a fan of the rushing upside? What's the deal?
Yes.
What's the stack to with Dotson?
I mean, I love the connection with Dotson, especially like I do think that the race between Jahan Dotson and Terry McLaurin is going to be closer than people might think initially off the top of their heads. But Sam Howell overall, like, first of all, balling out in training camp, but in general, I've been pretty high on Sam Howell just overall. Like, reminds me of a combination of like Russell Wilson and Baker Mayfield, just has like a little bit of that dog in him, like, and he has wheels that you wouldn't really expect, but like in the opportunities he's had, he's actually been a pretty productive rusher in the very limited opportunities he's had. So yeah, like as my QB3 of like, I'm going to bank that he's going to, have a couple of games this season with, a rushing touchdown or 2 or 3. Like, let's go.
Yeah, you're on the clock here. I'll let you make your pick. But yeah, no, that's interesting. Howell having a good training camp. And while you're making that pick, I'll remind everyone, SuperFlex Bowl draft tonight at 10:30. And Roy informs me in the chat there's 1 seat left for that draft. And apparently I am in that draft. Angels are getting their wings tonight. I'm drafting after Kate, so I'll be drafting at 10:30. 1 spot left. Everyone jump in that thing. Let's get that thing filled. Let's have some fun, and let's see if I can do as well as Kate's doing tonight. So we talked about Amazonians, and we've been talking about your team too. We'll go to Always Smooth. Again, leads off with another started quarterback, Justin Herbert, and then 5 straight receivers, Diggs, Metcalf, Allen, Marquise Brown, Brandon Ayuk as wide receiver 29 is there as Always Smooth's wide receiver 5. Then followed up by Brock Purdy at QB 22. I really like that. Purdy looking good, throwing the ball, feeling good. So good for him. Then Kyle Pitts, tight end 5, off the board. James Cook, Desmond Ridder, Michael Thomas to kind of follow that out there. It's a 0 RB build. James Cook is their RB1. Maybe not your favorite So let me ask: are you a zero RB person? Are you a hero RB person? What's your kind of preferred strategy?
I go with the flow. Like
Yeah,
I literally um my entire philosophy is like I want the best player available, period.
yeah,
And sometimes I'll end up with some wonky teams and some teams that look a little bit different than maybe I projected, but I hate going into drafts with game plans. Like
yeah,
it's not my style cuz every time I try to go into a draft with a game plan, I'm going to be honest, usually I make bad decisions cuz I'm trying to fill spots and not like my goal should be to draft a good team and not to check boxes. And that has been kind of a shift in my philosophy. I feel like when I first started in fantasy, I cared a lot more about checking those boxes. But this is sort of like the shift in mindset that I've seen overall in terms of like I don't need to try to fit things in where maybe they don't fit. And I think a lot of that comes from more experience with tier-based drafting, which we talked about earlier. Like that I think has really opened my mind to the idea of drafting guys that like that is the whole concept of tier-based drafting, right? Like taking the best players available in your respective tier and playing that sort of game. And I don't know I don't know when the switch just like but it did.
yeah.
And I do feel like I like my teams better when I'm drafting this way instead of going in with like a set plan. Like if the board falls to me in a way that I'm like, man, I'm getting a bunch of elite running backs falling to me back to back to back, I'll take it. And then that's my hero RB. And then
Yeah.
maybe the next draft that falls, I'm just getting lots of value at the wide receiver position that I feel like I can't pass up. Well, suddenly I'm zero RB, and that's okay. Like your teams are allowed to look different, and
Your teams.
your teams are your teams, and like draft a team you want to root for, and
Right.
and the rest falls into place. I think.
Yeah, I think so. This is an interesting discussion. I think tier-based drafting and best player available drafting can be very successful when you're right. And when you're right, you can smash because you get all your guys and you're doing really well. I think what certain structures do is they allow you to be wrong a little bit more often and still have like a nice structure to do that in. But I think the upside of best player available tier-based drafting is good. And I think maybe it clicked with you, Kate, when you felt more maybe confident in your player takes and your player analysis. And like, you know what? I like these guys and I don't like these guys. And so I'm going to take this best player available because I think this is the best player available rather than, okay, I need to take a receiver here because I took two straight running backs. Or I'm going to go zero RB. So I have to take a receiver here because that's part of the draft plan. That's part of the structure. So there's multiple different ways to do it. As one of my BFFs, Mike Schultz says, anything can work, anything works. But yeah, I think that comes with confidence, Kate. I think you obviously have the confidence to do that, and hopefully everybody else does too. So we'll follow up here. You went Sam Howell, and you came back and you went Rashad Penny and Dalton Schultz as your tight end too, as your fill-in kind of steady Eddie week to week, right? While you wait for those Kittle blow-up weeks.
Yep, that's sort of my plan, right? Like Dalton Schultz, I love Dalton Schultz. First of all, I loved what he did. I wish I still had him as a stack with my Dak Prescott. I wish I still had him in play there, but I don't. Sadly, he moved on to the Texans. But I mean, this is a situation where, like, obviously, I talked about the Texans offense. They have plenty of question marks when we were talking about Damian Pierce earlier. But when you look at the receivers in this room, right, there's no standout wide receiver one. You've had Nico Collins, who's had plenty of positive like mini camp reports and training camp. Like there seems to be a good connection there, but like Dalton Schultz, like he is extremely capable of working the field. Like on the Dallas Cowboys over the past couple seasons, right? Second on the team in receptions and targets and receiving yards. Like he function as this team's wide receiver too, basically. And I do think that there's a lot of room here for volume, especially as it, like if let's say CJ Stroud wins the job, he needs to win the job.
In air
Let's
quotes.
just say
Yeah.
win the job. If like let's just say it's helpful for a rookie quarterback to have a big bodied tight end moving across the field. It just is. And I think he's going to see plenty of targets.
Yeah, I think they brought him in there for a reason to kind of help the youngster there. Again, doesn't have like major upside, but I think he's the perfect tight end to go with your George Kittle upside guy. I think it's a great pick, and you're on the clock here. So we're going to move on to lean and green. Again, quarterback start Burrow, and then comes back with Tua. So Joe Burrow, Tua Tag Vialoa, back to back double tap quarterback there, and then follows up with Saquon Barkley, Devonta Smith, Josh Jacobs, Christian Kirk, Cam Akers, Jimmy Garoppolo is their QB3, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Quentin Johnston, couple of young rookie receivers there. First tight end off the board for them, David Njoku as tight end 8. Then Jacoby Myers, who I'm a fan of over there in Las Vegas, Nevada. So yeah, interesting kind of build here. Starts double tap quarterback at the top and then alternating running back and receiver for the next few rounds, and then gets a couple of these young stud Smith and Jigba as wide receiver 41, Quentin Johnston as wide receiver 45. I love those two picks for leaning green, especially as like a high upside guys. Christian Kirk goes there as a wide receiver 2. What is your take on the Jags offense? I know that's kind of a polarizing offense this year. Some people are really high on it. Some people aren't so much. Talk to me about like the Ridley Christian Kirk thing going on over there.
I'm obsessed with the Jaguars offense, and those of you who have like followed me or anything on Twitter, like it's no secret. I drafted Trevor Lawrence 101 overall in Scott Fish Bowl, which actually wasn't my pick. I kind of auctioned that pick off as a charity event sort of thing for Scott Fish Bowl. And you know what? Like all things considered, you could do worse than Trevor Lawrence at the 101, right? Like
of course.
Like you can do a lot worse. Like honestly, I'm surprised Trevor Lawrence here in this draft lasted until the 112. Like I think that's a fantastic value. Like you're getting a quarterback that I think has a lot of passing upside. He's got enough athleticism that he's going to probably sneak a few on the ground. Like he's got a lot of upside, but the addition of Calvin Ridley, I think, just takes the ceiling of Trevor Lawrence in this passing offense over the top. You have Evan Ingram, who's been extended. You have Christian Kirk, who saw a lot of volume, and he was really productive with that volume last year. But like, I do think the addition of Calvin Ridley might be the ticket that like brings that team to efficiency, or brings Calvin Ridley, or oh my gosh, Christian Kirk to efficiency, right? Like
too much candy for you tonight. Too much candy.
It's too much candy. I like again, you guys gave me way too much candy. Like we're not even getting into like, the potential for Calvin Ridley to be like a top 12 wide receiver. And I hate to say it. He was my projected wide receiver 1 the year he was injured.
Brutal.
It was brutal. And still, like, you see these tapes. So like one of my favorite clips that I've seen shared over the past several days was this clip that was like Zay Jones running a route, and then it was Calvin Ridley. Did you see that clip, Adam?
I didn't. I saw Calvin Ridley make a beautiful catch on one of these, but I didn't see a Zay Jones Calvin Ridley thing.
No, it was a back-to-back clip. I'm going to share it on my Twitter account. So you see Zay Jones run a route. Like it wasn't like 11 on 11 or anything. It was just individual drills. You see Zay Jones run a route, and then like right back to back, you see Calvin Ridley run the same route, and you see like Zay Jones, he's not slow by any means. Like he's a pretty good receiver. He was actually very productive in Jacksonville last year, like underratedly so. And you see the sheer difference in the way they run that route. And suddenly you realize that like, oh, Calvin Ridley looks like old Calvin Ridley. And that clip was like, I know it's a clip from training camp. He's not facing coverage, but like he doesn't
But
need to face coverage. Like,
you can see burst. You can see, like, you know what I mean? Like,
yes,
you don't need to be, playing tackle football to see that someone's quick and they get the twitchiness back and the burst back. I
he
completely agree.
looks different. He looks like the man of I don't know,
2 years ago. Yeah.
yeah, like whenever the last time he took the field was. Like,
He was wide receiver 3. You know this. He was wide receiver 3 overall the last time he played a full season. The following year, he was doing well, and then he had some mental health issues, and then the gambling and all that. It's like, and people sound like, I've been slow to kind of come around to the camera. I'm the guy with really like, let me see it to believe it. Let me see like how training camp goes. Is he mentally back? And all accounts say that he's back, and I'm right there with you. I feel like
he
Ridley.
looks locked in.
Yes. He lost a lot of money, and he lost 2 years of his in the prime of his career. So he's going to be gunning to get back, and he might that might be the offense for him to do it in. So, but yeah, I'm coming around on this Jaguars offense as well, and we'll get back to you're coming up here on the clock soon, so we'll get back to you. But right now, let's talk about Blue Dogs team. Jamar Chase, Tyreek Hill goes the opposite of most people. Doesn't do a quarterback to the third round. Aaron Rodgers, Matt Stafford. So kind of a punted quarterback here. Got 2 middle of the road guys, some Super Bowl champs, veterans, Rodgers and Stafford. And then Amari Cooper, Kenneth Walker, Deontay Johnson, Delvin Cook, Kenny Pickett, Khalil Herbert, Sky Moore, Damian Harris, Rashad John, who we spoke about earlier, and Ezekiel Elliott. So 4 wide receivers early and then waits a little bit there. Kenneth Walker, again, another team that waits and then goes heavy at the running back position here. Your boy Kenny Pickett, kind of at QB to 25. So again, waited on quarterback, got 3 in the first 25 here. Chase and Hill, I mean, locked in at the receiver position. Deontay Johnson to go with Pickett. Okay, I'm a big Deontay Johnson believer this year. Finished last year as wide receiver 28 in a year where he didn't score a touchdown. Going here as wide receiver 33, I mean, there's no way a healthy Deontay Johnson finishes below where he did last year.
I mean, literally, wide receiver 28, and he scored 0 touchdowns.
Zero.
Like
Zero.
0, 0, ZERO touchdowns. And
Hey, he scored as many touchdowns as you and I did last year.
I know. I was this close to scoring more touchdowns than Deontay Johnson last year. Like, we were this close. And like, I love Deontay Johnson. I think he's one of the better wide receivers in the league. Now, the biggest issue though, like, you have to be cautious though. As a Steelers fan, I'm very cautious of offensive coordinator Matt Canada. He hasn't done a good job of setting his receivers up for a lot of room after the catch. A lot of plays set up to target the sidelines, and it felt like a lot of stop and go, right? Like, it was splash player bust. And
yeah,
I do think you have to worry about some of that consistency. And I think, Kenny Pickett, I'm sure, will make a leap in year 2. How much of a leap will it be? Will it be enough to maintain some consistency in this passing game? Because he only threw 7 touchdowns last year. That was only 7 more than I threw, which is crazy. And I didn't even start any games last year. So
hold on.
Let this be the record.
Did you play Johnson like football game though? I mean, did you throw some touchdowns in that game or no?
I didn't. I should. I can. I got an arm on me. I can do it.
I believe it.
I can do it for sure.
I believe it.
Yeah. This off season, you wait. I just I think this offense needs to take a massive leap forward, and I think that there's talent there to do it. It's just like, as a Steelers fan, maybe I'm like overly pessimistic, but I am so concerned about Matt Canada and what he could do for this offense, because I'm losing all faith.
Yeah, I wish they wouldn't have brought Canada back. I mean, there's so much talent in this offense outside of the quarterback position, so we'll see about that. But Deontay Johnson, with most other quarterbacks, would be he'd be probably picked top 20 as a receiver. But no, I could completely agree with the Canada thing. Coming back to your team, you follow up Dalton Schultz with DJ Chark as your 4th receiver in Carolina, and then Leonard Fournette. That's such a good pick. People, listen, Leonard Fournette, you took him as RB55. When he signs somewhere, people are going to be running to their ownership percentage and be like, oh, I hope I have Leonard Fournette, depending on where he lands. But if he lands in a nice spot, people are going to wish, where is he going to land, Kate, that he doesn't, that his stock drops lower than RB55. There's like nowhere he could go where he'd be taken lower than RB55.
No, and I think naturally just by the fact that he's not signed, like, yeah, his ADP is low, but I also think that like this is kind of that time of year where any unsigned running backs, like, you don't have a lot of like motivation to actually make a signing, right? Like, no, I would rather hold out for a hot second, and enjoy my time not playing in training camp.
Right.
And then what I'll do is I'll plan to go ahead and I'll sign, after training camp, after the first catastrophic injury, which, knock on wood, happens every year.
Right.
And suddenly they become a lot more valuable than they ever were prior to, anything else. So like
Absolutely.
I think that like he's probably approaching the situation correctly. And when he does sign, I think, he's gonna get some touches. And again, this is best ball. Just like I said with George Kittle, like this best ball is the type of league that you can really afford to take a little bit of risk here and hope for the upside of Leonard Fournette and a potential situation here. Because you don't have to worry about starting him on a week to week basis. But you can see how the pick plays out.
Yeah, exactly. And the closing line value for these late running backs is the key. Like you get these guys that, again, the closing line value of running backs going in this range is much higher than receivers. You get an injury. Perfect example, someone the Jalen Warren pick for Always Smooth, like RB42. If God forbid Najee goes down, 10 rounds of value on Jalen Warren will go up. Same thing. If Leonard Fournette waits, now Lenny is a guy that I want to see first, like what type of shape he's going to come in. You might have fat Lenny, and then it's like, oh no. But again, I think it'll be okay.
Good for the end zone, though. Get a little more
right.
cushion for the pushing.
That's right. That's right. So yeah, Leonard Fournette there. And we'll move on here to Team Matt, pick 10. Justin Fields as his QB1, Travis Kelce as his tight end 1, Jonathan Taylor, Russell Wilson, DJ Moore, Travis Etienne, Mike Evans, Alvin Kamara as RB25, Rashad Bateman, a guy I love, wide receiver 42, Kyler Murray for that late season run. I like that. QB27, Juju Smith-Schuster, Rashee Rice, who's getting a lot of hype here in the preseason, Devin Achane, RB48. I like that too. Especially with Cook visiting the New York Jets, Rashid Shaheed and Alec Pierce to kind of round that out. Achane, goes here as RB48. What do you think about that? If Cook signs with the Jets, Achane, more closing line value for him, you think he'll go up 4, 5, 6 draft spots?
Yeah, I definitely think this could be a huge value. And like my concern with Achane, just given like the dynamics of the offense, like I think this is going to be a pass first offense as long as Tua is healthy. And I do have concerns because all of these are kind of like similar, shifty, like speedster running backs, right? Like Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson, like all of them have some sort of element of speed. Maybe it's not as fresh as Devin Achane is, but like I think all of them are going to get some touches. And the thing is about like this team, when you have as many speedsters and all that, is like it might not take as many carries for you to get to the end goal of RB 15 or whatever you might be hoping for, but it can be kind of inconsistent sometimes because like you never know when Raheem Mostert, if he gets a carry, is he going to take it to the house? And he could. Same with Jeff Wilson. So like this is the perfect format to roll the dice on a player like Achane, because it's also similarly to what I just said with Raheem Mostert with Jeff Wilson. Like the same goes for Devin Achane because of his breakaway speed. That like it might just take like a few carries in a game, and suddenly, because of his ability to break off runs, because of his speed, like you don't need as many carries, and this is the perfect situation in a best ball league to take advantage of that.
Yeah, and I think Team Matt took your advice. This looks like a best player available type draft, right? Quarterback, tight end one, running back, another quarterback, super flex, wide receiver, running back, wide receiver, running back, wide receiver. It just looks like, hey, there's no heavy RB, there's no zero RB, there's nothing like that. It's just looks like Team Matt went with like with a best player available build, which is great. I like a lot of the picks, to be honest with you. And you're coming on the clock here. After Fournette, you go Zach Moss as RB59, and then Allen Robinson. Oh, more Steelers homer love. The stack, totally understand it. He's running out of the slot exclusively, I'm hearing, for the Steelers. Talk to me about Robinson, because I was dead wrong about Robinson last year. I was one of those guys at the 3-4 turn, pounding, clicking draft on Allen Robinson every time. Talk to me about him there. I mean, wide receiver 76. It doesn't really matter there, right?
Nothing matters here at wide receiver 76. Like at this point, I'm going for upside. We've heard, out of training camp, mini camp, like he's working out of the slot. Apparently the transitions looked really good for him so far. And the Athletics, Mark Kaboly has said that he's looked really good, especially in the end zone coming out of the slot. Like if he's target in the end zone, boom, end zone targets are suddenly worth, how much more than a standard target,
Yeah.
I'm chasing upside at this point. I don't know how much upside lies in this Steelers offense with Kenny Pickett, Matt Canada, and how old is Allen Robinson? 30?
He's not even that old. He's just like, go ahead. Sorry.
I don't know how old, I can't even remember how old he is, but I don't know how much upside is there, but I think at this point in the draft, there's some upside.
29. He's 29 years old. Like, that was my whole argument for him last year, was like, the guy just didn't get bad at football at 27 because he had that bad year 2 years. You don't just stop being good at football at 27, because there was no news of like his legs stopped working, like he's suffering through, like, I know he had some early career injuries, but he's only 29. It's, I mean, again, wide receiver 77 or wherever you took him, fine. There's going to be some issues with upside there, but you're right. If he catches 6 touchdowns, he's going to start for you 6 times. And as wide receiver 77, we will take that for sure. And that would be good news for you. And good news for me is the draft field at 10:30 tonight. I'm picking third, Kate. And if I can get my guy Josh Allen dialed in tonight at pick 3, I'm gonna be super excited about that. So you'll share this board and everything tonight, and then I'll share mine, and we'll compare. We'll kind of puff our
see
chest
who likes whose. Yeah,
that's right. We'll puff our chests out a little bit later on. Although you'll probably be sound asleep when I get done with mine. But.
Yes, God willing.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So I actually got it's 10:09. Oh boy, we gotta hurry up and get this draft done here, because I got some leagues to win. So we'll move on to arch enemy. Double tap and running back to start. McCaffrey, Eckler. That's a cool start. I've done that before. When you can get your RB1 and your RB2 in a SuperFlex draft, you kind of don't want to turn that down. It's kind of fun to see, hey, what type of team can I build when I do that? Arch enemy comes back with Jared Goff, Richardson. Love the pick, Richardson, QB17. Speaking of upside, that could be 900 yards, 8 to 10 touchdowns for sure. Our guy, Calvin Ridley, Christian Watson, Michael Pittman to stack with Richardson, Brandon Cooks. All these guys, I feel like we've talked about a lot of these guys tonight. And then Bryce Young as his QB3 at QB26. A.J. Dillon, Samaje Perine, Thielen, Mooney, Tank Bigsby, who I really like there in Jacksonville. Hunter Renfrow, another guy I have a ton of. And Josh Kelly there to kind of handcuff Eckler. So I really like what Arch enemy was able to do after double tapping running back. What do you think of this build in a Superflex?
It's interesting.
Yeah.
I will say, the one concern here, I do think the value at quarterback really fantastic. Like Jared Goff, especially at home last year, found a lot of success. Anthony Richardson, if he earns the starting role, I think he should. I know that they've been sort of playing back and forth with him and Minshew, but like it's Richardson's team. Like, let's not beat around the bush here. This team's not contending for a Super Bowl in 2023. So like, get your rookies some reps. Who like Anthony Richardson is a guy that coming out of college like needs reps. He's not like the most experienced quarterback. So like, throw him in the ring. I think following it up with Bryce Young, who has the starting job under lock, like not a bad idea. But I will say the biggest question I have about this team is the confidence in Austin Eckler, which I love Austin Eckler as a person, as a supporter of the fantasy football community.
Yes.
He's incredible. So shout out to Austin Eckler. Does any concern exist for Justin Herbert, for the offense moving into like Kellen Moore season, who it sounds like the team is much more willing to target, downfield, utilize those big bodied receivers and Mike Williams, Quentin Johnston, like force the ball down the field instead of, Justin Herbert, who it currently sits as the highest paid running back of the NFL. And I believe he was top or bottom 5 in ADOT last year or close to it, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Like,
so many targets to Eckler. That's why. Yeah.
That it kind of handcuffed this offense and handcuffed the upside of this offense. So like, that is my concern with Austin Eckler, especially as RB2 in this draft. It's early for me, and I worry. I worry about the upside there with Eckler, just given the changes that I'm projecting. With Lombardi out of town here.
Yeah, interesting. So RB2 is normally where they go, but in Superflex, with starting the quarterback, sometimes you don't want to push that RB2 up. The thing about the low ADOT's a good point for last year. That was Herbert did have some busted ribs last year. Eckler was getting a lot of targets. I don't have a lot of Austin Eckler. Me, it's just like, man, a guy that's so small in stature, not young. Is he going to get banged up? I would rather be off of a guy a year early than a year late. So, and he's going in a range where I can get a superstar receiver in that range that doesn't get hurt as often. So, even a guy like Travis Kelce too. And with Eckler, just some touchdown, regressions coming as far as like
he cannot score 18 touchdowns again this year.
Yeah,
he cannot.
Year. I know.
I love him, but he cannot.
He can't. So I agree with your points on that. And it's especially tough too when the next running back doesn't go for like another 12 picks. So you're really taking, which happens in the SuperFlex Bowl. Man, that's why I love SuperFlex. But interesting little start, fun start to see if they can do it. And then we'll kind of wrap up here with the Godfather, pick 12. Godfather goes Trevor Lawrence, Deshaun Watson to start the draft. Interesting. Some people choose not to go with, the leftovers at quarterback there at the end. But Godfather double taps Lawrence and Watson, followed up with Pollard and Henry. Still gets 2 workhorse backs, hopefully. Then London, Hopkins, James Conner, Rashad White. I almost said Roddy White. Rashad White, Treylon Burks, Cortland Sutton, Nico Collins, a guy that you might be high on, Kate, in that offense. I know I like Nico this year. Pat Freiermuth, Kendra Miller, Peoples-Jones, Mike Gesicki, Curtis Samuel, John Mechie, another Houston player, and Tajay Spears. So interesting build here. Again, this does not look like it was a best player available. Could still be, but 2 quarterbacks, then 2 running backs, then 2 receivers, then 2 running backs, then 3 receivers. Could be best player available, but looks like maybe there was a strategy there. I like a lot of the picks. What do you think?
I like a lot of the picks. I think that there was a lot of just like, generally speaking, I think there was some value here and just taking shots. Like I like the shot on Nico Collins. I like the shot on Kendra Miller. It felt like there were a lot of picks. Like, this is going to be a team that either sinks faster than you can imagine, or this is going to be a team that just blows your mind because there's a lot of players here, between Burks, Sutton, Collins, Kendre Miller, even like John Mechie, like there's a lot of potential here. It's just like it all has to come together, and will it? That is the question. But like, I mean, when you're in a best ball league and you're shooting your shot, like you're banking on the upside of these players, and I think there's a lot of upside here in this roster.
Yeah, completely agree. So let's run down your team here one last time, and then we will get out of here. This has been a lot of fun. So, Kate, you start Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott, double tap quarterback to start the SuperFlex draft, and then your Candyman, Devontae Adams, followed up by Najee Harris, Joe Mixon, George Kittle, Damian Pierce, and we talked about all these picks: Jahan Dotson, Zay Flowers. Go back to the double tap, the receivers, the young upside guys. Dotson, a big touchdown guy. You stack him with Howell in the next round, and then Rashad Penny, Dalton Schultz, DJ Chark, Leonard Fournette, and Zach Moss. You take a little detour there for 2 running backs, and now you're pounding receiver because you got to catch up here at the end. Allen Robinson, Jalen Hyatt, the Biletnikoff Award winner out of the Titans. Jeez Louise, it's getting late. Out of Tennessee,
You still got a whole draft to go, man.
Oh, I know. And then Marvin Jones so far for you again. Hyatt, young, upside. I mean, listen, you want to see an explosive game. Tune into that Tennessee Alabama game from last year where Hyatt just humbled all those D1.
And it was Alabama. Like
I
that.
know, Alabama. I know.
That was crazy. Like in that game alone, I feel like won him the Biletnikoff. Like just, generally speaking, I love the upside here and love the speed and love the, I think there's a lot of potential here in this offense with Brian Dable, with Daniel Jones. Darren Waller is the primary target, but like one of the focuses of this team in the 2023 season is going to be to develop the deep passing game. Jalen Hyatt's the guy for that. And if they're able to establish that, like he is going to be, I think, a big part of establishing that deep pass. So give me that all day for some upside.
And perfect for best ball for sure. Totally agree. And speaking of Fred Biletnikoff award winner to the best college receiver, at the expo, at the bar, in the hotel, they have the Fred Biletnikoff wine, by the way. That is absolutely fantastic. Highly recommended by myself and Mike Shope. Are you going to be at the expo this year?
That I'm still trying to work on. I always come down to the wire. I'm working on it. We'll see if I make it. If I do, I'm going to be having some Biletnikoff. What'd you say? Wine
on us. On us. Biletnikoff on us for sure. And listen, this was so much fun. And we're going to do this again for your circa mid-stakes draft you're going to be doing, and we'll tweet that out again. That'll be a lot of fun. Kate, where can everybody find you? What are you doing these days?
I'm doing a little bit of everything. Follow me on Twitter at Kate Magdziuk. It's Magdziuk. Polish, for those of you who were wondering. But this year, I'm going to be a little bit of everywhere, working as the managing editor for Behind the Steel Curtains, the SB Nation's Pittsburgh Steelers site, writing for PFF, going to be making my debut for Yahoo Fantasy here in the next week or so.
Beautiful.
But yeah, I'm going to be a little bit of everywhere. So don't miss out, doing the Locked On Dynasty podcast, doing the BallBlast Fantasy podcast. You guys can't escape me here in 2023. So follow along. I hope you enjoy the work, but definitely always feel free to at least say hi over on the Twitterverse.
I love it. And listen, you and I soon we'll start the Candyman podcast soon.
Yes,
we'll our favorite guys over there. But again, Kate, thanks so much for joining me tonight on the Full-Time Fantasy Grind Time. Good luck this season with the SuperFlex Bowl. Hey, I'll see everybody in about 10 minutes for my draft. So
good luck.
Right. Thank you, and we will see everybody